we're back to work on JD's engine here. So we got to finish tearing this thing down, try to get it honed out, and maybe we could start reassembly. But at least get it torn down and see what we're working with as far as a hone goes. He's going to go ahead and pull the pulley off, water pump, and this engine mount out of the way. That way we can get access to the timing set and whatever. I guess while he's doing that, I'll pull the main caps out. Oh, they are numbered. Somebody punched them. 1 notch, 2. So that's nice. A lot of times on your main caps, people will either punch a number into them, or they'll just take like a chisel and put a notch. So 1, 2, 3, 4. And the rear obviously only goes where it goes.
But I need a hammer for these.
Well, sometimes these are pressed on. So you need to get this motor mount out of the way before we can do it.
Okay.
I don't know how these FE balancers or dampers or whatever, not sure how they go on. So we're just going to beat on it till it comes off. Seems like the only reasonable thing to do. I got all the mains off. Every one of these journals looks pretty dang good.
It's coming off.
Parts. Look at that bearing. That's the rear main. It's great. Look at that. It's freaking brand new. I just noticed this timing cover is different. The bosses are quite a bit wider than this engine over here, and the lighting's kind of crap. I'm sure you can't see, but much shorter bosses. That might be a leftover from its original truck engine or whatever. They probably put that on so they could use that horseshoe mount. What is this thing? See that thing?
What the heck?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna buy him a timing set. This thing is both sides wasted.
Oh.
Totally wasted.
Oh, wow.
Like a lot. Especially here, what really matters is on the gear itself. Wouldn't take much for that to jump. Somebody wrote 40 on the block. 040. Definitely all new. You pull this is the fuel pump eccentric.
Mm-hmm.
This is what drives the fuel pump lever.
Yep.
Zip that off. Looks like a 5/8. And then this should just slide off. While he messes around with that, I'm going to start pulling rod caps off. But as I pull them off, I'm going to cut a little bit of fuel hose to put over the studs on the rods and keep the threads from digging in to the crank journal, theoretically, as I'm beating around in there. Slide whatever the hell that is off there. I have no idea. Then you got to pull the cam gear off first.
Yeah.
I think it's just stuck, probably. Or it's some kind of goofy Ford thing. There it goes. There's a guide pin in the camshaft. See this hole right there? And this right here?
Mm-hmm.
Look at how that's been turned down. It's like somebody hit that with a die grinder to make it fit. Must not have been a very good timing set.
Huh.
So take that cap off, take a dead blow hammer, and tap on the side of it. You can hit it a little bit. And tap on the top of it. On the machine flat on the top. A little bit. There you go. See it move?
Yeah.
Now tap it on the side again. Can you wiggle it with your hands?
No.
Might need some more muscle. Try to move it like this and like this. Wiggle it all around. Yeah.
Full high.
No, it's just all in the movement. Before we start beating on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
So see these? These are the rod studs. Take a chunk of fuel hose
Mm-hmm.
for each one of them. Hopefully they're 3/8. It looks like 3/8. Does that work?
Yep.
Keep going for the other one. I need to get my bigger dead blow hammer.
Okay.
And a block of wood. Like this, like you're driving the piston out.
Oh, okay. Well,
See? It's starting to move pretty easily.
okay.
So we'll get her out of our way. Take this sucker here. I got way too big of a block of wood. So we'll just take your other dead blow here. Catch that piston when it falls out. Coming?
Yeah, it's coming. There.
You got it?
Yep.
Alright. Easy on the way out. That's 1 down, 7 to go. That was one of the easy ones. Now when you put your cap back on there, see this little tang here? See that little indentation?
Mm.
The cap will have an identical one.
Okay.
They just go on the same side.
Mhm.
Tang to tang. So we'll go ahead and loosely assemble the rod again with the bearings in it. They aren't all going to be quite as easy as that one, but that wasn't bad.
Mhm.
And I think that was one of the bad cylinders. That was one of the bad cylinders.
Oh. Well,
That was the
yeah.
one you cleaned up. So we got a little bit of a dilemma. The rod is labeled number 3. However, that is 100% coming out of the number 7 hole. We're just going to put it back together wrong and hope that whoever threw it together the first time had a better idea than I do. Glad we put the rubber on there.
Yeah. You hit the rust mark.
Got our new and improved dead blow here.
There we go.
Is it? Alright. Come out in one piece?
Yep.
Good. But who knew? Electrical tape won't hold up to that. Driving metal into rods, usually a bad thing. We got away with it. This one is number 1. This one is also number 1. And number 3 was right across from number 1. These are obviously refurbished rods out of God knows what. This sucker was dingle-balled to the max. Fudge, man. Still a standard bearing. Oh. Boy, this thing was Gomer piled to death. We need to tag these where they came out of. So go get some baling wire and tear off some pieces of cardboard and we can write what cylinder they came out of. And we can tag each one.
Okay.
We're just going to tag the rods where they came out of, which, you know, this one is 3. So I'm going to write 3s a lot on here so we don't forget. It's pretty important that they go back where they came from. When an engine's stuck, sometimes getting to the rods is pretty hard. You just gotta kind of pray that you can get to it. I can get one click at a time on what we believe to be the rusty cylinder. Oh, well, somebody labeled this rod end cap wrong, and it's a completely different rod cap than the rest of the engine. This is a real winner here, boys. We got us a good one. That is not even close to the same as the rest of them. That's definitely the locked up one. So we could take out everything else we can get to.
Yeah.
We could figure the other pistons will probably come out.
Mhm.
And then maybe we can rotate the crank out of the way.
Yeah.
And be able to focus on that a little better. Our plan is going to be get the ones we can get. Try to get all of them except for, you know, the problem child over here. And then hopefully we can roll the crank out of the way and really be able to give it our full attention. There we go. Matter of fact, all these other cylinders that looked bad, they kind of cleaned up when we drove the pistons out. It's pretty stuck. Let's try going in. I started whacking on this thing and it'll go down. There. Whack it down to where it's clean. There's where the cylinder cleans up. Now we clean it up. Here's what we got for cylinders. Like I said, it's not good, but I think a hone can get all of these. Except for maybe that one.
Pretty bad.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, that's pretty bad. I don't know how much you guys can see. It's pretty heavy fitting. But the other one. So for whatever reason, there's giant Phillips screws on the cam thrust plate. Because why would you just use bolts, you know? There. Well, I'm sure there's a tool for it. You know, a big screwdriver and some channel lock seems to get it done. I guess we'll just put them back in there the same way.
Yep.
I ran the casting number on the crank, and the crank does come back as a 2U, which could be a 390 car or a 391 truck. And it has the big crank snout, pulley snout on the front, so it is a truck crank. The block isn't. It's a car block, and the heads aren't truck heads. So and all the rods are out of different engines. So this thing is a hodgepodge, like big time. Cam out and just take a look-see at it carefully now. You don't want to nick up the bearings in it. So what we're looking for cam wise is we just want to look at the lobes of the cam, make sure we don't see any that are like super round or obviously worn or anything. See this little edge here?
Yeah.
That's where the lifter's been spinning on it. That's a good thing. That's what you want to see, that little feathered edge on the lobe. As long as they're all like that, it's probably good. It's a little chewed up on this one. We can run the numbers on it and see what it is. So the cam on that is an SYB23. Looks like a Melling. 432 intake, 436 lift on exhaust. Duration at 50, 192, 199. Pretty tame. Quite a bit better than a stock cam. So that'll be good for a little bit of bump and torque. The cam bearings in it look new also. Not terribly surprising. But we're about ready to hone this sucker. And to do that, we're going to first clean the cylinders out as good as we can with a toilet bowl scrubber. Then we'll be ready to hone. But you don't want any debris sitting in there that's going to end up gouging the cylinders worse than they are. So we're probably going to use some oven cleaner down in each cylinder. So that shouldn't cause flash rusting like the brake clean would. Well, this smells good.
Dude, it smells really good.
Let's scrub one up, and I'll actually go mix up some soapy water
Okay.
to rinse them with. So after you hit them with the oven cleaner and the toilet brush, I just been wiping them out with a little bit of dish soap and water mixture. We ain't a machine shop here, but we can do our best. So here's the hones I picked up. I like these flex hones here, otherwise known as a dingle ball. They're made in the USA and they're pretty cheap. Pretty much you just chuck them into a drill and then bzzz, run them down the hole. But this one's a 240 grit and this one is a 120 grit. And I figured we'd do about 25 seconds of each in each hole. Typically for like a cast ring, you want a coarser grit. The 240 is actually too fine. But I think we got all the abrasiveness we could ever ask for in this thing. So I think we used the 120 to try to clean it as best we can. And then use the 240 to try to deburr what's left of that. And I think it'll be okay. So when it comes time to hone the engine, just use regular old 1030 or I've used transmission fluid in the past. And that works pretty good. Got this at Walmart for 16 bucks. Seemed adequate. Doesn't matter what kind of oil or anything, it's just lube. And you need something to dip this hone in, you know what I mean? I found this pitcher, in my house. Looks pretty good. Need to be able to dunk it in there for every cylinder. So we're just going to fill this probably about half. And that's probably enough to... Yep, that's enough to submerge it for starters. And it leaves us a little extra to add to it. Oh, JD ran down to the mailbox to go get his rod bearings that came in. So when he gets back, we'll just start honing on it. Meantime, I'm going to tell you how much I paid for all this stuff. So here's what I've gotten to build this engine. Rings were $34. Found a new old stock set of Muskegee rings. Mains were $77 for Cleveite 77s. Rod bearings were $35. Gasket kit was provided by Holley. Thank you to our partners over at Holley. And it's a Mr. Gasket kit. It's 80 bucks. You could probably get cheaper, but it would quality would suffer, no doubt about it. And an oil pump was 40 bucks. Timing set, which I just ordered last night, was $11 on Rock Auto. Plus shipping made it like 24 bucks. So that's what I got in this. That's it. I bought the hones, I guess. They were 50 bucks each. I would call that optional because you might already have them. It's not like they're one-time use. I'm just going to do one of these and then we'll just shoot on through them. But I'm going to leave the drill on 1, the lower speed. You want to be about 600 RPM or so, 800, something like that. Anyway, we're going to dunk this into the Forbidden Sweet Tea over here. Now you want this thing spinning when you get in the cylinder and don't let off of it. We'll do it for about 20 seconds. Think that's been 20 seconds? Yep. We go a little more. Let's take a look-see at what that looks like. After we do that, we'll just wipe it out with some dish soap. And it's a little coarse, but what we're looking for is about a 30 to 45 degree cross-hatching of the cylinder. And that's pretty good, actually. That's not bad. It's got a nice cross-hatch pattern to it. Cylinder feels nice and smooth. Yeah, that should do it. But we'll hit that with 240. We'll probably do them all with 120, and then do them all with 240. And then we'll see what we're dealing with then. So here's what we're working with here. And one other thing to remember is your stroke speed. I noticed I was actually going a little too slow on this one. We'll have to correct that when we hit it with the 240. But you want to be about 2 strokes a second, 1 to 2 strokes a second. A little bit faster will give you a little more aggressive of a hatch. This is the stuck hole. And you can see there's definitely some discoloration in it. I hope you can see anyway. But it's a lot better. You know, is it going to be perfect? No. Maybe we'll come back and spend a little extra time on this one. But I say all the rest of these have cleaned up pretty good. They're not bad. This was the other real bad one, wasn't it?
And there's like a...
That's down in there. The only thing that really matters is up here. See this dark mark right here?
That's where it was.
Mm-hmm. The top half of the cylinder is really the only thing that actually matters. The rest of it can be all kinds of messed up and you'll never even know. What? Ew.
It's all like metal or something.
Yeah, it is. Well, that's what we're doing, is sanding the cylinders.
Oh.
Alright, so next step is going to be to hit her with the 240 grit. It's probably an unnecessary step, and I really should have just done like maybe 120 to 180. But the 240 was cheaper, so that's why I went with that. Just dunk her in the oil again, and we did each one about 20 seconds. So we'll do this about 20 seconds, and that'll be the total amount that we needed to do it. Pretty good pitting still. Definite ridge, but it's so much better. I mean, the pitting's pretty bad in it still, but you know what? I think it'll run. We're gonna go ahead and hit them all again, and I might even hit that bad one again just to make sure. But I think she should be good to go. I'm going to go ahead and measure these bores just to make sure we didn't go too far. 409 on the dot. 409, just a hair over. 4088.
409.
Perfect. It's time to clean it up, and you know, before we reassemble anything, we might as well get the block all spiffed up. We got our oven cleaner to spray it down and get her soaking, but
okay.
And we'll clean this thing inside and out. We'll use brake clean to clean out the passages. You know, just kind of, this is all part of the dingle ball rebuild. I like to call this hot tank in a can.
I'm putting a lot of here. We're already painting it with oven cleaner.
This will pretty much be a hot tank, you know. Cleaned and inspected. You know, we measured the cylinders. That means it's good. This is how I like to do them, is get them all the way stripped down and then do it. An oven cleaner is the best engine degreaser there is. Just clean it up too. We're just gonna hot tank everything here. Roll all these main bearings out. Big no-no, don't use screwdrivers for this.
Oh.
Time to scrub a dub-dub. Helps if you let that oven cleaner just kind of soak in there a little bit. Maybe we'll just hit it with the freaking power washer.
Yeah, let's do this first.
This will help break up some of it. Probably should have done this from the start, but well, there's no time like the present. So we're just going to power wash the whole engine and everything here. Then try to oil the cylinders and the journals and everything so they don't rust. But that's pretty much all we got. This thing is awful. Absolutely awful. Well, that's a lot better. But I am very wet. But man, those coolant passages were sure full of something. But much cleaner. We could paint it for sure now. Now get you a microfiber, buddy.
Yep.
Wipe out the cylinders, lifter bores, and the journals.
Okay.
Anything that's a machine surface. And then we'll put a coating of oil on everything until we're ready to assemble.
Okay.
During our power washing, I blew a hole in this freeze plug here. That one's new. That one's new. This one's not. So we're gonna knock that out and replace that while we got it here. Much easier than doing it in the car. Oh. It's that much crap that's not in it anymore.
Yep.
Doesn't take long for a machine surface to go and get rusty. And that oil will clean all this right up.
All the rest?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
It just needs a little bit of thin coating on it. Nothing major. Can you reach into the lifter bores from here?
Yeah, just...
Yeah, just poke a finger through them with the rag. Don't judge a book by its cover. These freeze plugs are pretty poor shape. So let's knock them all out and we'll replace every one of them. JD's going to go ahead and paint up the oil pan, water pump, and timing cover just to keep them from rusting. Do you want to paint the oil pan gold? I think I would.
Actually, yeah. Engine paint from Holley. It's very nice of them.
What brand is this? See, they sent out this. This is from Scott Drake. AccuMatch. I mean, this is 64-5 Ford Gold. Be like for Mustangs, small blocks. But it'll look cool on that oil pan or, you know, accessories. And then regular old Ford Blue, which is, it's all Mustang stuff from Scott Drake. But they're owned by Holley. And no doubt it's probably very good quality stuff. So thank you to our partners over at Holley for sending us this and a whole bunch of other stuff that you're going to see us put into this engine. Just do like a light dust.
Okay.
When I put a freeze plug in, I like to put just a little bit of RTV around the edge of it, just in case it seeps. And after 50 years of heat cycling and rust, it'll probably seep. Square it up in the hole best you can. Get a hammer and a socket that about fits in there. Pretty much ready to drop the crank back in this. So JD wiped out all the journals. They're nice and dry. And right now he's got to pick out this rear main seal. And we can replace that with our Mr. Gasket rebuild kit, courtesy of Holley. So he'll be putting that in, which means we will need the rear main cap right here to get the other half of it. Oopsie. Then before we put these in, we're gonna wash them out in the wash bucket here with, of course, Dollar Tree dish soap. Just take some of this Dollar Tree dish soap and pour it in there, and boom! That's basically a hot tank. We'll roll our old bearing out of there. Examine the journal. Looks fine. And you take your pick tool. Just stick it up under the edge there until you get it moving. It pops right out. Get this all soapy. Take our Dollar Tree sponge and then scrub them real good. We'll be doing the same thing to the pistons and everything else, but just do this like you do your dishes. Get all the gasket material off now, and then we don't have to worry about dropping it in a fresh engine. Like new. This being a Ford, it has a 347 piece rear main seal. Just stick these down in there. I'll probably put a little RTV on the back end of them just to make sure we're covered. I'm just going to take a little dab of RTV, which I'm sure the instructions say not to do, and then put it on the back side of this. And I'm pretty sure the beveled side goes in on this. And if I'm wrong, I guess you'll just have an oil leak. These guys here, these are the side seals, and they go in like that. JD's playing in the forbidden Kool-Aid. I'm going to go ahead and start rolling the mains in here, and we went with, I scored these old Clevites. Just good old Clevite 77s, nothing special. But scored these on eBay for 77 bucks, made in the USA. So all your bearings are the same except for the thrust bearing in most engines. And, you know, I mean, I didn't look at anything to see if that's the case here, so hopefully it is. But these are pretty idiot proof. You got a tang on the bearing, there's a tang in the block, Don't push them in, roll them in until they're flush on both sides. They say cleanliness is second only to godliness, but you know, or the rusty roof of a Roadrunner, that'll work just fine. Normally I wipe them off with some brake clean or something first, but I don't have any, so a dry cloth will work just fine. You just don't want any kind of oil on the back side of your bearings. See here?
Yep.
See the tang?
Yeah.
And the notch for it? You roll like that. Make sure they're even on both sides.
Okay.
So I'm going to put the thrust bearing in. This is a thrust bearing. It's what maintains the crank and the centered in the engine, sort of. While he's cleaning off all the bolts for the main caps and finishing drying off the mains, I am going to go ahead and put some assembly lube down on the mains. And you're going to want lube on both sides of the crank, obviously. So just putting a big old glob along the mains does the trick. I like good old Lubriplate. Choice of shade tree rebuilders all over the world. Normally I would say there's no such thing as too much, but whoever put the engine together the first time used too much. Get a nice fat bead in each one of them. And then when you roll the crank over, it'll kind of work its way around. We coated the crank in lithium grease to keep it from rusting while it was sitting out here, so I'm going to clean that off and then go ahead and dump it in here. So JD's going to start rolling the bearings into the main caps, and there's a couple spots on this crank that have some rust on it that I don't like, so I got a little emery cloth here, and I'll probably clean them with that.
Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Good job. When you emery cloth a crank, don't pull real hard or nothing, just kind of put your cloth on there and work your way around it. Boom. Wow, that cleaned that up really good. And I'll probably get the air gun out and blow through all the passages in the crank before we slam it in there, just to make sure nobody's plugged up. Brake clean would be better, but again, I don't have any. Alright, let's lift this big old bastard up. Here we go. So against my better judgment, we'll stick some plasti gauge on this main. So we're just going to set a whisker of plasti gauge on hole number 4 here. Main caps 95 to 105 pounds. Now what we're going to do is torque this guy down to its spec, something like 100 pounds. 100. That's 100. Alright, now we take it back off. See those little smudge marks?
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put this on the freedom measurement. 2/10,000ths, whatever that is. I don't know my numbers real good. The main bearing tolerances come back as 002-ish, and that's fine. That's well within spec, apparently. I mean, I didn't know that. We measured it, and we can feel better about it. That's great. Well, for one, I'm going to wipe out this plastic gauge with my shirt, of course, you know, because of engine and stuff. Then spit. There we go. Cap side here. Just poop out a big old deal on here. Just like that. And this is number 4, correct?
Yep.
Arrows go forward, little triangle, it points forward. Poop a big old deal on here. Okay.
Yummy.
Let's drop it in there. Should fit. No problem. Damn Fords and their 457 piece rear main seals. This is way better than one. Why would you just use one when you can make 4 separate parts? So much. Always start in the middle, work your way out. And then always work in sequence. once you're able to torque an engine 100 pounds.
Okay.
So like I'll do this one to 60 or so. We might verify this with another torque wrench after we're done.
Okay.
Not that I don't trust the 50-year-old Sears torque wrench, but I don't really trust the 50-year-old Sears torque wrench. So after 60, I'm going to take her up to about 90. And then I'm going to take it to 105. Now after every time you torque it, if you torque one and the engine quits spinning, then you know that was the one that made it quit spinning. And I used another torque wrench to verify the torque. If you don't have the luxury of that, you'll probably be okay, but you might want to buy a good torque wrench. I have the luxury of having 2 crappy torque wrenches, and as long as they agree with each other, I'm happy. This is where you can check for another measurement here, but I don't have a mic to do it with. So end-to-end movement, you know, like tolerance, whatever. Pretty much just give her a shake, and if you can't feel it moving around, it's probably okay. Last order of business is going to be JD spraying some paint on the block here. Commence hosing. Oh yeah. Hell yeah. JD's got this slicked up real nice and blue. So now it's time to give our pistons a bath. And we were to do that, put more of that in there.
Really?
Yep.
Like all of it?
I mean, it is from the Dollar Tree, so it's probably not the greatest stuff.
You need the forbidden Kool-Aid.
Forbidden Kool-Aid. So, let's start doing these one at a time.
Okay.
But before we take them off, see the ring here?
Yep.
We're going to take the rings out of them first. Like that. Blech. Now that one's ready for a bath.
Okay, this is done.
Do you think you can manage to get these rings out, or do you need me to take them all out? They're kind of tough.
Take them all out, I guess.
Me?
Yeah.
All right. Show them that as a finished product. Just a little dish soap and some scrubbing with some supplies from the Dollar Tree. It gets you that. Looks pretty good, practically new. What we're going to do next is check ring gap, right? You're going to position your ring in the cylinder, and I'm only going to check one because I'm lazy. You should check all of them. Then take your piston and then square it up with the piston. That way you know it's centered in there. So what I'm going to be doing is sticking a feeler gauge into this gap right there. And we're looking for 18 thousandths to like 24 thousandths, something like that. 19 thousandths is it, which is perfectly fine. So now let's check at least one of our oil rails. Just slide one of them in. And I think they want to be pretty tight, like 10 thousandths. Plenty of room on 13. Okay, this isn't looking very good. Let's go to 15. She's a little excessive on the oil rail clearance. Well, it's at this time that we'll just quit looking and say it's fine. Our next step is going to be to install our new rings, which are Muskegon from 1989 is what the box says. You start with your expansion ring here on the oil groove. Set him in there, make sure the ends butt together. And sometimes it's good to use a pair of these ring expanders here. They can make your life a little bit easier sometimes. Sometimes they can make your life harder. It just kind of depends. So you can open it up like that, but don't go too crazy. If you're going to walk them on, just be careful and don't go more than one groove at a time. You know, just take your time and work your way down. See, and once you get them down to this point, you can just roll the ring into place. Now there is one thing to keep in mind here. And that's this expansion ring. So you want them pretty much 30 degrees apart or something like that, or like an inch apart or whatever, you know. Just make sure they're not lined up all the same. Your rings are different widths in a lot of applications. And they're going to come labeled telling you exactly what is what, but that's a thicker one. It don't fit in the top one. That's about as simple as it gets. This is what you really want the ring expansion tool for right here. It's just to open them up. Just get it close, and then you should just be able to pop them right in. Just like so. And then your top one is the easiest one to do, I think. Just drop that one right in place. Boom. There's one ready to rock piston. I'm going to go ahead and just start putting the rings on them as JD finishes cleaning them. And I'll probably roll the new bearings into them as well. Meantime, while I'm waiting for him to clean them, I'm going to go power wash that disgusting mess of an intake manifold that came on this thing. One other thing I forgot to mention, and forgot myself, there's a dot. That dot should go towards the top of the piston, because the ring has a bevel to it. But anyway, that's what that's for, so the bevel's facing the correct direction. And that matters because reasons. If you don't rebuild engines with half of your shop supplies coming from the Dollar Tree, I'm not sure we can drink beer together, partner. JD's going to be rolling new bearings into the connecting rods. We got one piston in here, and then after you're done, I'm going to put 2 pieces of hose on the rod bolts to protect the crank journal whenever we slide it on. So go ahead and roll a bearing in. So this is number 2, right?
Yep.
Okay. So we're just going to use our ring compressor here. I like this style. They're kind of handy. You just put them on like this, and they'll just kind of capture the whole shebang like that. Make sure it's kind of level in there. Notches on these pistons go to the front. I'm going to roll them till the rod's at the bottom of its stroke. Then we're going to make sure there's no, like, you know, dead rats or anything in the cylinder. And it looks pretty good, so I'm just going to keep my hand under here to support the bottom of the rod and the rod bearing. One piston. See the rubber hose on the rod bolts? That's protecting the crank from getting all beat up. So we got our rod cap, right? And we're just going to put a big old slob of snot in there. We'll bolt that on, line up the tangs, the tang on this bearing with the other tang, and you'll be good to go. We're just going to hand loosely assemble this stuff for now. Alright, well there's half of a short block. We're going to roll the engine. Good God, what was that? It's a war zone out here. You know what we could do with this? So we put it all together, right?
Yep.
Take pictures. Then sell it to some sucker as a freshly rebuilt 390. And then go buy you a good engine. This thing's going together too easily. Something is definitely going to happen.
We're gonna try and get this carb spacer off. That's how you properly take off a carb spacer. Next time when we work on this and put the engine in, we have all this stuff sent from Holley. Because, well, they're awesome. And we've got carburetor, obviously, flow monsters, distributor, and we've got everything in here. Big help that they did.
So now JD's going to clean up the old oil pump sump. And I'm going to torque rod bearings. I bought a new oil pump, but I didn't want to spend 30 bucks on a sump. So, you know, that's saving us a little bit. It should. Make sure you kind of flush the tube out as much as you can. JD, what are you cleaning that in?
Forbidden Kool-Aid.
That is the forbidden Kool-Aid.
Dip your hands in it and it turns your hands dirtier than ever.
So the rod bolt's torqued to 45 pounds. A smaller torque wrench would probably be better suited for this, but whatever. Well, it rolls over, so I mean, that's winning right there. Oh yeah, that's a different rod. I was looking at the threads that are sticking out of this one, and there's a lot less. It's because that is a completely different rod than the rest of the ones in the engine. We now have an assembled short block, and hopefully it works. And it isn't a time bomb. I don't know. Be good enough for you.
Yeah.
As long as it runs.
Good. Yeah.
It's gonna look good. Well, JD just took off. I'm just gonna wrap up a couple little odds and ends. He got the pickup nice and clean out of the original oil pump. So we're gonna put that on our brand new melling unit here. These Fords have a drive shaft for the oil pump. It has this little washer deal on it. And there's a hole down in the block that sits in, and it won't let it fall out the top. So we're just gonna give us a dab. You always want to just put a little bit of grease on it when you assemble it, just because. Just drop her on in there, like that. Oil pump has a keyed spot there for the same deal. I'm just gonna line that up, make sure that that gets seated. Put your oil pump in. I don't think it needs any gasket seal or anything like that. The gasket should be able to do the job. There we go. Get our bolts started in there, and we'll crank them down, and it should be good. I kind of like the bolt-on sump. That's better than the press-end sumps that a lot of GMs use. Well, I am going to go ahead and stick the cam in it, I think. I'm just going to do that because it's already starting to flash rust just sitting around, and we coated it, but apparently not well enough. And it'll be safer in the engine, actually. Just being a flat tappet cam, they're so iffy. Hopefully it's old enough, and I'm sure it is, that it really won't be much of an issue, but the new ones, the new metallurgy and stuff, is just not good. That's a huge problem these days, unfortunately. And the other good thing is, he's still going to learn, because he'll still watch the videos. He watches all of them. So I found a really long bolt that threads in there that kind of gives you a handle to grab onto when you're jamming these things in there. I bought this Lucas assembly lube here, which I've used before. It's nice and gooey, so it really stays on there. Now don't go slathering the whole dang thing up right off the get-go, you know. Do like up to your first notch here. Your first bearing groove here, or journal, or whatever you call it on a cam. And maybe go another lobe or two. Then you can keep lubing it as you're sticking it in there. Kind of maximize your effectiveness. Just be very careful when you're doing this. Get her all lubed up. If you make a mess, whatever, it's better than a flat cam. There we go. Installed. Gross. And just because I'm extra paranoid, I'm just going to give them a shot down each one of these lifter bores too, and just kind of swirl it around in there. It'll just be a little bit more will help keep them lifters spinning. That's what kills flat tappet cams, is the lifter needs to spin in the bore. And if they don't, they grind the lobes flat. And we're probably not gonna put the lifters in yet because they just fall out the bottom. We still got to roll it over. But we can set up the timing gear. This has zinc in it, and this stuff will actually break down in oil instead of just clogging up your oil pump. It's good stuff, and it was only $7. I'm also going to go ahead and clean up the head surfaces, the absolute wrong way. Again, would have been better, before I assembled the whole engine, but, well, beggars can't be losers. Now I'm going to wipe down the cylinders with a little bit of oil. Not a whole lot, but just a tad. Just to keep them from rusting, for one. And to provide a little bit of lubrication for the, rolling over and stuff we're going to have to be doing. It'll help some. Give those rings a little bit of a chance. So I think I'm going to go ahead and assemble this engine. He already did so much to it, and he's been spending all of his time doing this. It's okay to give him a break. Now I'm going to go ahead and just slam the rest of it together. There's not that much left. Anytime you put a timing chain in pretty much any, American engine, V8 engine, I can't think of anything that'd be different. You want to install it so that the mark on the crank gear is straight up, and then put the cam gear at about 6 o'clock. And that's actually going to be on number 6's top dead center, but that is okay, and we will show you why. Get your chain on here. We're all ready to rock. We got to get this pin inside of the cam. There. I think it's in there. Oh, it's a lot tighter than the old one was. I want to make sure that pin is seated. I'm going to give it a little love tap. Yeah, that's it. She's definitely in there. Oh, I knocked that in too far. Uh-oh. That's going to go something like that. You can see this mark and this mark are pretty close. So just to make sure that doesn't go, leaving the building, I'm just going to set our fuel pump eccentric on it, maybe, except for this washer seems to be too big. What gives with that? Actually just decided to turn down that washer just a little bit. I didn't have anything that was just a little bit smaller. There we go. Maybe that'll help kind of retain that pin too, because I don't trust that at all. I did replace the lock washer while I was in here, just for grins. Nice and tight, feels good. When I roll this 180 degrees, there, this mark and that mark match. So this is now number 1 top dead center. We're going to go ahead and torque that fuel pump cam bolt. There we go. Just a little tighter, and I was able to get it with the 3/8. You do want to put a little bit of assembly lube on these sprockets. Dig that. Instant chrome bolt kit. Pretty cool if I do say so myself. Look at that. Beautiful. When JD pulled these manifolds off, he broke off all 4 of those top bolts and 1 on the other one. This is no big deal, but I'm glad they're the top ones, because I'm not going to worry about trying to get these out right. I think I could just drill those out, and you just put a nut on the top of all of them when you put the headers on. Normally, if I really cared, I would drill a hole in these and then take a burr bit and try to chew out the excess and then try to save the threads out of them. I've done that a lot of times with good luck. But it's a lot of work, especially when you got to do 5 of them. So a little change of plans. I drilled it with an 11/32 bit, knowing that there are a 3/8 able to salvage the threads in this thing. Got the world's worst tap and die set here, but I think she's doing the trick. Oh yeah. Well, I don't trust that at all. Oh well, it'll still work because we can just thread a bolt into it, and if it happens to grab, great. If not, we'll just put a nut on the top of it. Now I'm going to go ahead and resurface the heads. Now I just got a big bummer right here, cleaning the head surfaces here, and notice we got 2 cracked valves in this one. You see the edge of that one's pretty bad, and this one's got a definite crack through it. They're not leaking right now, but it's only a matter of time. This head, I think, has been gone through. This head hasn't. So that leaves us with, we probably ought to throw all the valves in here. See, this intake valve is sunk down in there pretty good. I'm not too worried about those, but we could lap in a set of valves. Well, I found some new old stock exhaust valves on eBay and ordered them. Meantime, I'm going to put a new front seal in this timing cover and probably go ahead and button that up. Actually, I might be able to use this bushing thing. I don't know what the hell this is. Anyway, it went on the crank. Might be able to use that to drive it out, or just get it stuck in there. Get on in there. And there's one of those. Clean that up. We'll throw our new one, courtesy of Holley and Mr. Gasket, in there. Set our new one in. I guess you knock it in until it bottoms out. Who knows? Ford magic here. Well, it looks right. Full send. So we'll glue our new Senor gasket, and we'll just use a real thin coating. One good thing about this is that this is a cast iron timing cover, so we don't really got to worry about the pitting and stuff that happens when you got a alloy or pot metal cover. We'll get our gasket set up and glued on here, and then I'll try to fish out the bolts for that thing. Who knows where they went to. Good. Well, this is JD's car, so let's go the extra mile. I found all the bolts and they're just kind of crummy looking. Then hit them with a little bit of chrome paint, you know, dress it up. We got our engine bolt kit in a can here. It's gonna pretty them all up. Not even sure which ones we're gonna need, but I just did them all. Oh good, I painted myself. I look like the Tin Man now. Boom. You gonna tell me you'd be able to tell the difference? I don't think so. You ought to be able to go ahead and put this on, I think. Pretty sure this goes in after the fact, so I should be good. I think we just slide her on there. Of our fancy new quasi chrome bolts in there. Apparently I didn't let them dry enough. Great. I'm gonna go ahead and slide this guy on there. guess. Our, whatever the hell that thing is back in there. These big old long quasi chrome bolts to put in. Should have chased all those threads. Probably gonna regret that. Well, of course I snapped one off in it. You know, we'll just ignore that and pretend it didn't happen. Because I ain't getting into there. Drilling into the fresh engine doesn't seem like the greatest idea. It'll probably hold just fine. I think we can go ahead and slip our vibration damper on. Not a balancer. Just hang out there for a second, please. And then this guy just bolts right over it. Our freshly chrome plated balancer bolt here. I did manage to wrangle up some genuine stainless steel bolts out of my bolt stash from a bolt kit or something left over. Might as well use them here. They look nice. Yeah, that's probably 90 pounds. I got this chrome fuel pump on eBay for 30 bucks. So I'm sure that's a really high quality piece. Yeah, I don't want to alarm anybody, but the $30 Chinese fuel pump, you know, it may not be the nicest quality item you can buy, but you know, I thought it kind of fit with our theme here. And one last thing we can button up while we're here will be the oil filter adapter, which just barely clears the Chinese fuel pump, by the way. I'm going to go ahead and recommend don't buy that. Solid review right there. I'd tell you what brand it is, but it didn't have one. Not going to use very much silicone on here. Just a little bit. Kind of helps stick it there while I position it. I'm assuming he needs the down oil filter and not the out the side oil filter that the other engine has. We'll go with this one for now, but it's not too hard to replace. It doesn't look like if we need to. Well, now that it weighs considerably more, let's go ahead and flip it over and put the oil pan on it. It definitely weighs more. Oh, God, this engine stand sucks. God damn it. Jigs, your engine stands are awful. I think we'll paint the dipstick handle gold, you know, for a little offset. And JD really likes the gold, so I'm sure he'll want to see as much as that as he can. I painted the distributor hold down gold too. There we go. Look at that. Moroso. Clean this sucker up nice, because he's going to be giving this dipstick a lot of attention being a Ford. Especially being that Ford. He's going to be the most beautifully polished turd you have ever seen. I gotta say, I like the fully skirted block, because this gasket, one piece, that's quite a superior design, actually. We are going to glue the ever-loving hell out of it, because that oil pan is all kinds of screwed up. Try and keep it out of the bolt holes if you can. Now, we'll go ahead and set this on. We'll put our pan on it. And I scrounged up some shiny bolts for the pan too, so that'll look nice. Nothing else in there I gotta do, right? I don't think so. If there is, well, I guess we'll do it again. Come on now. In the drop. So we're gonna make sure these get torqued to proper spec. One oil pan needs a little touch up now. That is okay. Very cool. I don't think we're going to have to flip it over again. So I'm going to go ahead and put a filter on it and just pre-lube it a little bit. random Walmart oil I have, because I have it. I'm only really doing this just to kind of help seal off everything. Don't need any more moisture get into things. And now we can put our lifters back in that we neatly organized. We can just slap them right in now. I'm just going to pull them out. This is the front on the driver's side. We didn't have to worry about, which one is technically what, but, we know where they go. That's all that matters. So I'm going to squeeze a little of this down there, every one of these. Try to catch a lobe with it. I'm just going to put a little bit on the bottom of the lifter and send it home. Normally, you would want to okay, I guess you don't have to, but I would soak a set of lifters before installing them. But if you're trying to reuse stuff, you can't really do that. So these should be fine. They have been ran. They have worn in. We're just gonna hope for the best here. The more lube, the better. Just tossed a little gasket sealer on that broken off bolt, stuck it in the hole. Nobody needs to know. Well, it looks like it just kind of sets in there and then it bolts to the exhaust manifold. I guess I'll just leave it like that for right now. I can't even get that done. But we could put it in here for looks. Well, we do have this sweet. Oh wow, this trash bag is full of assembly lube. Now it's rust proofed inside and out now. Got sand. We got this sweet chrome oil filter cover. Doesn't quite fit, but it's good enough. Now I'm just chasing the threads in this engine block here, because remember, right? This came out of a big truck and it used a horseshoe mount on the front. These holes are pretty gummy. Well, I think we're just going to wing it and say that they go on that way. I was not able to find anything. If you guys know, please let me know if I need to flip that around, because it's crooked, which is weird. Well, anyway, I think that's going to do it for this one, guys. Thanks for watching, and we're going to get back with you on this as soon as I get the heads done or fixed or parts or something. We'll figure it out, I promise. So thanks again, guys. Really appreciate you being here. Remember to hit that like, subscribe, ring the bell, and we'll see you next time on Pole Barn Garage.